All right, Konstantin, I appreciate you taking the time this afternoon for us to chat up a bit about what you do and how I think your real estate techniques are a bit different, especially from the ones that I usually talk about. So if you don't mind, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Good to be here, Anthony. So I have a very extensive career in education. I was a mathematics teacher for 20 years, and for the last 4 years, I'm a content area specialist for calculus and event placement statistics. I also started investing in real estate in 2016, and at this point, I have about more than 20 single families investment properties. I do own a couple of duplexes, I do own a mobile home, and I also own a lot of vacant land lots. So those are my latest acquisitions in terms of vacant land, mobile homes. In the next month, I'm doing a syndication with my business partner. We're getting into looking at six plexes and some 10 plexes coming up for 2021, depending on what the market's going to offer. As we all know, it's a very challenging time for real estate and for owning rentals. So we're still in the process of deciding what's going to be our next move. But we sold the property. We had some 1031 exchange money that we need to invest, as a matter of fact, by next Saturday, November 14th. So we are just desperately looking for a property that we need to purchase in the next week. So that needs to happen. So
Awesome. Oh, well, for start, well, you touched on a lot of things. So for one, what got you into real estate?
Well, it's my very first experience. I came to the United States when I was 19 years old, and I moved into Brooklyn. We rented an apartment in a six-family house in Greenpoint, New York, in Brooklyn, and that's like one of the most notorious neighborhoods as term of turning around. And in the time, we were renting one apartment, and the owner of the property came to us and offered to sell the properties for $186,000. And we were very new to the country. We did have the money. We were saving, and we did have the money. We could have purchased the property, but we were kind of afraid to do it, and we didn't do it. So right now, today, Greenpoint, Brooklyn is one of those neighborhoods that has turned like 180 degrees around. That property right now, it's worth more than $4 million. So that particular move, and as I've seen the property turn around in terms of the price of the property, it was just enough for me to understand that if I would make a small investment, that was 1991. In 1991, now I would be like multi-millionaire without doing anything else, just like owning one property, one investment. And that was like an emphasis of the power and the velocity of the real estate, and how much you can actually prosper by doing very little, just by owning your own primary residence instead of just renting, which is an amazing example of what's the possibility. So that's what got me into real estate.
Gotcha. And then, so earlier, because I want to cover a bit about your real estate strategies. Earlier, you mentioned the 1031 exchange, and you said you have a week until you.
Yes. So the way the 1031 exchange is pretty much when you sell a property and you have like capital gains. So if you take the money, you have to pay taxes between 15 and 20% of the capital gains. Since we almost made twice the money we invested, instead of paying taxes, we're going to take that money and we're going to purchase another property. By doing that, that's called 1031 exchange. You don't have to pay any taxes on the capital gain from the property that you sold. So you can keep on multiplying without paying any taxes, and that's like a very powerful way to grow your nest egg.
Yes, and so you plan to use that money to get something bigger?
Yeah, we're going to get a bigger property. We had a duplex in upstate New York, Wyndham, New York. It's a ski area. So we actually flipped it without doing any work. We doubled our money within we held it for like 1 year. And the reason why we didn't do any work is because we couldn't find any contractors that were actually fair and somebody we could trust. That's always been a challenge for us doing the work, especially because Wyndham is about 2.5 hours from New York. So since we struggled to find a contractor, we decided, well, let's just put the property in the market. And we were surprised that we got so much money. With very same condition we purchased the property. And now instead of like taking that money and putting the money in our account and paying taxes and then buying property, which we're gonna do anyway, we just put the money in a 1031 account. The thing with 1031 is they give you 45 days to identify 3 properties and potentially 180 days to purchase 1 property. So that's the challenge with 1031. It's time sensitive, and you do have to be careful with the time, and it puts kind of a pressure on you to be able to select a property. And especially now with this market, so difficult to find any decent deals because there's so much competition. We've been struggling. Like we've been working very hard to find something. I mean, we do have a couple of deals, but they're not perfect. But we're gonna have to do it anyway because the tax bill is gonna be thousands of dollars. So we don't want to.
Yeah, and so that was what I was gonna ask. So are you willing to not get a discount on a property just so you can meet the deadline?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah,
Okay.
I'm willing to pay because the tax bill is like 20,000 plus, maybe more. So
Yeah, exactly. It takes a big chunk.
a lot of high market price, then lose that tax discount.
And so you also talked about you do rent to own real estate as well. And then you also said seller finances. So we'll do the rent to own. How do you do that? How do you structure that with the people that rent?
So rent to own is really a way for me to avoid the part that I'm fixing the property because like for the most part, I'm distance investor. In other words, I don't have any investments in New York except for my primary residence, which I purchased like 15 years ago. Because New York doesn't make sense to invest in it. You never get cash flow. It's just like a horrible place to invest. So my closest investment is in upstate New York, which is about 2.5 hours from my home. But for the most part, I own properties in Ohio, New Jersey, Illinois, so like a bunch of states that are very, very far away. So if I'm just fixing a property and then renting it out, I'm encountering many, many problems because usually it's difficult to find honest contractors, and then to manage renters, you probably need a property manager, and that's also very challenging to maintain. But when you're doing rent to own, usually helping people to get into the property that they want, and they take care of the property and they're responsible for everything. You just make sure that the map is correct for them and for you. And it's also very easy in terms of there's no attorney fee, there's no headaches. You just sign a contract, and when the time is over, they just purchase the property and the price you agree on. So that's the way for me to do a flip and at the same time collect cash flow. So here's an example. So let's say I purchase a mobile home for 10,000,
Okay.
and I find a rent home somebody who wants to spend $700 per month. So what I do is I said to them, like, let's take a $3,000 deposit, and with $700 per month, after 5 years, you'll be able to purchase the property. So they're very happy because usually they have, they don't have sufficient credit to purchase the home, or they don't have the funds to purchase the home. So they become, in a way, responsible for everything else. There's repairs, maintenance. They're the homeowners. I'm collecting my cash flow. They eventually would own the home a few years down the line, and that's the situation when it's like win-win.
And so the home is obviously in your name, and what do you use their rent pretty much to pay the mortgage?
I don't have mortgages in those homes. I purchase them cash.
Oh, purchase them full cash.
Correct. That's the only way to do that. That makes sense.
Gotcha.
Because if you have a loan, you can still do it, but then I'm not sure if the numbers. I mean, if the numbers work, I mean, you can still do it if you have a mortgage.
Okay. And so when it comes to seller financing, I now that I do know you have to pay in cash in order to do that. And that alleviates you the headache of having to deal with it. You just collecting the monthly payments that they make.
Well, self-financing is a great way for you to get a property that's not working out for you. For example, a property in New Jersey that I really couldn't finish the construction work on it. So the bank wouldn't finance it to anyone to purchase it through a mortgage. So the only way you can sell it is sell it for cash or use self-financing. Cash buyers usually they pay very little, so it doesn't make any sense for you to sell anything cash for somebody who's the top purchase price would be like 60 or 80% under the hour. That doesn't work for me because I'm an investor myself, you know. So I found someone who is actually, you know, willing to do self-financing. So what they're going to do is they have the contractor, they're going to do the work, and they're going to flip the home for them. And meanwhile, they're making a payment to me. Instead of paying huge interest, I only charge them 5% interest on the loan. So I'm very happy that I was able to sell the home. They're very happy because they were able to get the home they can work on and build equity. And obviously, there are plenty of equity for them as well. So that works for them and that works for me.
And so you said you do 5% interest on the payments, and then do you require a down payment as well?
I did. For that property, I require 20% down payment, yes.
Okay. And so,
Property, if it's like it's a very expensive property, it's like a $300,000 property in New Jersey. So, I mean, I wouldn't just give it to someone with a monthly payment. No, I wanted 20% down payment. We agreed to 7 years financing because I know it's going to be a lot of work on that property. There was an underground oil tank there. There were some challenges. So I allow them. Usually I do 5 to 10 years. That's my range between 5 and 10 years. And you know, the interest I do between 4 and 6%. Some properties I could do with 10%. The property is like, you know, $30,000. If it's worth $30,000, I'm going to do it.
okay.
10%, you know. And I do that with a vacant land as well. So as a matter of fact, I just have a guy who was asking me to do something called land contract. This is the same thing, like in some states, seller financing is called land contract because you're doing a contract on the land. And like in Ohio, I'm talking about Ohio. So I did a seller financing. It's called land contract in Ohio, and it worked pretty well. I mean, the terms were, you know, 7 years, 20% down, and it was very inexpensive. It was a duplex that I bought for $9,000. I put like $13,000 worth of work, and I sold it close to $60,000. If I count the interest, which I'm going to occur like for the years that I'm going to be holding the property, that becomes even more. So the buyer is really happy, you know, because they were able to get property without going through the bank, without, you know, being able. And the monthly payment is very little. It's less than $500. So I'm happy I don't have to deal with renters. I'm happy I'm collecting interest, especially the first year. Like almost the entire payment is interest. And I was able to like triple my money on that property.
And so I like your strategies. I like your strategies because they don't require they don't require you to be there physically. You know, obviously we have technology, so you're able to make phone calls and emails and stuff like that. But I guess it seems like you've adapted and you're not doing the 30, 40 year buy and hold. You're doing, you know, it's still long-term investment, 5, 10, 7 years, but it doesn't strap you so much so that you have no choice but to hold on to the property. You can get out of it. You have exit strategies. And so that sounds like it works out pretty well for you. Especially with the fact that you're able to buy properties that you don't have to do work to, and you still end up making a profit off of that. Is this always intentional, just in case you can't find contractors in order to make the flip happen?
Yeah, because in my experience dealing with contractors, it's always been a situation where I end up in a place where like the contractors are taking advantage of me for some reason, or things are not working out, the work is done incorrectly because I have no view of no way of supervising the work, and this is the kind of business that, you know, it's always somebody just trying to cut corners because it's not their property, and it's always been unpleasant experience dealing with contractors. So since then I was looking for a way to eliminate dealing with contractors and eliminate dealing with like regular tenants where just they're paying rent or they're late in the rent. If like in the case that I'm doing the self financing, if they don't pay the payment on time, all I gotta do is just evict them or do a foreclosure and I'll get the property back. And then there's much more leverage for them. They have to invest a 20% down payment. So I don't ever have to worry about them not paying me the monthly payment of self-financing or lease to own, because they have 20% or they have a huge deposit, which is a huge leverage. So if they
Yes.
decide once they're going to stop paying, that's fine with me. I'm just going to do it again. I'm just going to foreclose on them, and then I'm going to self-finance the property one more time. That's it. But I don't think that is going to happen, because the people that actually get into self-financing, they're very responsible, and it's such a pleasure to deal with them. They don't have the mindset of a tenant. They have a mindset of a homeowner. So they do want to own the home. They do take pride of the home ownership. So that's what makes me excited. And it makes me excited that I'm able to help those people, to get the property they actually want.
Yeah. I like that. And so did you used to buy and hold in order for you to get to the point where now you could buy properties in cash?
Sure, I have quite a few of those. I do have like close to a little less than 10 buy and hold, but I do have more properties with mortgages, and I've been in those deals since 2017. Some of them are working really nice, and buy and hold is a great strategy because they have appreciated really nice for the last 3-4 years since I own them, and that's something you don't get with self financing or with lease to own. You don't get that nice appreciation, but at this point in my life, I'm only looking to build on my cash flow. I'm not necessarily looking for property appreciation.
And so, yeah,
Yeah.
you've structured your deals around what your goals are, financial goals are. And that's something to take consideration, because a lot of people say, hey, if you want to get, retire from your job or become financially free, you need to do, you can do mobile homes, because mobile homes are cheap and they have great cash flow. And then if you want to appreciate, look into buying homes. And so I've noticed that based on whatever people's financial, I guess, goals are, that's the real estate strategy that they take on for that time frame. You also talked about that you also have land that you owned as well. What do you do with that land?
Yeah, this is something that I kind of discover myself, that you could buy vacant land and then you could just rent it out the way it is. You just have to be careful with the restrictions. But that's another way to avoid contractors or to avoid repairs. So what I do is I purchase vacant land and I rent it as it is. And usually people use it for hunting, and they want to put a camper if the restrictions allow. So I collect two, three, four, $500 positive cash flow. Whatever you collect from vacant land is all positive cash flow. So if you own vacant land, you can rent it and you could just be collecting that cash flow without doing anything. And I hear some people in bigger pockets, they mention that they're having between 200 and 300 hours positive cash flow from a single family home. And I found that very unpleasant, because like I don't want to deal with the tenant and with the property for 200 hours a month positive cash flow. I don't want to do that. I have a vacant land in Newark, Ohio. They're just bringing me 300 hours, and the lot is like 5,000 square feet. It's just, why would I own a single family house and dealing with tenant and headaches? I could have just vacant land, and all I do is just collect my payment. And the people there, they're very happy because they're saving money for their mobile home. I think they have a camper. I'm not 100% sure. I think they put a camper. So instead of paying somebody like twice as much just for the land, I'm renting them the land, and they're very excited that they can save the money, and I'm also very happy.
How'd you find them to even have that set up like that?
Yeah, so I use Facebook Marketplace. I used to use Zillow. That doesn't work at all anymore. Like I can't get any leads from Zillow. Before I used to be able to get many leads. Now it's just Facebook Marketplace.
Yeah, that's why I get a lot of my leads as well.
Yeah, Craigslist, but it's not as powerful as it used to be. Right now, I just pretty much Facebook and a little bit of Craigslist. That's how I found it. Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely, because between Zillow and Trulia, like Facebook literally probably had about 3 times the leads from Facebook when I put one of my apartments up for rent. More, I didn't know that Facebook was that powerful when it came to its marketplace, but it is.
And also depends where the property is. If it's a popular area, if I rent one of the apartments in my house, I could just put down Zillow. I'm going to get 30 applications in one day. Depends where you are. But some of the places, like I have places in Ironton, Ohio, or places that people don't even know about it. There it gets more challenging to find people. And I have vacant land in Ohio, which is sitting vacant for close to 2 years, and I can't find anyone to rent it. But I purchased it for $300, and it's the taxes about $160 a year, so I'm okay. And I'm selling it for $3,500, so it's fine. I wouldn't mind waiting.
And I guess, is it appreciating?
I don't know. I honestly don't know. I'm sure I could get like more. Like I got somebody offered me 2,500, and I said no. And I think it's worth it close to 4,000. So I mean, I have someone who's supposed to go see it today, but you never know. If they want to do also land contract, that's like seller financing. I said to them, look, just give me 10% down, which is exactly how much I pay for the rent, and you can do the monthly payment, and that's it.
That would be good. So you also said that you get a lot of you get deals online, and so how are you able to get these these discounts on these properties strictly online?
Yeah, I purchase all my properties, land, and everything from auction.com. That's just a website where foreclosed and bank-owned properties go for sale. So I purchase my properties from banks. Usually they don't want to own a vacant home. And a lot of the homes that I purchase are usually homes that they've been owning for quite some time. It's the homes that they want to get rid of. They don't want that in their portfolio. So this would like I started in upstate New York like 2 years ago when nobody wanted to be there. Right now it's getting, because of the coronavirus, it's getting a little more popular. People are moving north, but at the time, nobody wanted to touch those properties, and the banks they really wanted those properties to be sold for whatever money they wouldn't mind like giving away those homes, because it was really something that nobody appreciated. And you could take you like 3, 4, sometimes 5 months to rent those homes once you fix them. Actually, it used to be. I don't know right now.
Gotcha. Auction.com. So okay, I just learned something new, so I'm gonna check that out then, because I'm always looking for a discount, especially with the market the way it is now. Like I feel like a lot of things, not feel, but there actually are a lot of properties right now that are inflated more than what I feel like they should be. Especially with the fact that going into 2021, I don't really think that those homes will be, I think they'll go back down to normal, maybe 10, 15% down. Because if there's been a few times where I've made offers, and if I don't, offer 10 grand, 10, 15 grand over the asking price, I lose.
Yeah, the market right now, even in auction.com, I've seen that the competition is like worse than ever. In other words, people are purchasing homes. I'm not sure if they know what they're buying, but the prices that they're paying, like I'm shocked. And you could probably find better deal on the MLS for some of the properties they're going. You really have to be very careful with auction.com as well right now, because uh, the banks are very demanding because they know there is a sales market right now, and then they keep on putting those properties over and over again. They don't care until they get the reserve price. So you also have to know.
Okay. And so also, so with you doing things so far distance from where you currently live, what's the kind of the worst experience or learning lesson you had when it comes to doing business long distance with these real estate?
One of the worst experiences is my very first property. I hired a contractor, and they fixed the entire house, right? And I spent close to $30,000. And then I hire an electrician to do electrical kit in the house. And the house didn't have a basement. It had like a crawl coal place underneath the house. And the electrician showed me like the supporting beams were like actually cracked. So like the entire foundation was about to collapse. And I have a tenant there in place, and I also have the property refinanced at the time. So what I had to do is I had to let the tenant go. Then I had to, completely destroy all the work, the bathroom, the kitchen, the floors. And then I had to do the foundation. So I have to do the work basically twice. And it was another 30,000 on top of what I already have spent just to correct the foundation issue. So when the contractor, they don't want to deal with certain type of work, they just go in and they do what's comfortable for them or what they can make the fastest money. So me being 2.5 hours away from the property, I even didn't know that they haven't even connected the sewer and the water lines into the septic tank. They just run them into the water. So they just did things that were, unthinkable. And that was like my worst experience. However, like at the end of the day, that property, I was able to get close to $100,000 as appreciation as of today, because that area just happened to, they built it a casino. The casino world, we saw it. They built it maybe like 10 minutes away from that property. Lucky. And upstate New York has been a place where it's really, really like a lot of people are moving in. And I have an amazing tenants. They make the property like it's their own home. And I purchased the property for $10,000. So right now the property is worth close to 160, 180. So whatever mistakes or whatever, bad experience, a sleepless night, I'll be honest with you. Like I had a family living there, and I was looking at those pictures and the foundation about to collapse, and I was having like nightmares. And at the end of the day, right now I can say that things turn out really well. And that property brings me like $600 positive cash flow every month. And I was able to get 75% at the time was the refinancing.
But I cash out refinance.
It's the funny thing. Like I got close to $40,000 at closing.
Okay.
Because it was value around 90,000 at the time. The funny thing is that I was able to refinance with the foundation like just about to collapse. So scary.
Yeesh. And then it's like I can see why you was having nightmares.
Yeah, I couldn't sleep because like I could have, there was always a problem there with the water or with the heat. There was always something happening. Thank God I was able to find somebody who did the work right. But eventually this guy who did the work right, like, and the next property that he was working on me, like that cost me like maybe like $40,000-$50,000 of losses, because this guy, he was fair and honest on that property. Then the next property he was, okay, now I'm going to take advantage of you.
Which I find is so crazy to me. It's so crazy because I've had something like that too, where one guy, he's great on the first job and he did a good job, and then the next job he's like, half-asses, and I'm just like, what the heck happened? I thought we had a good relationship here. You did a good job. I paid you well. Now you're going to get continued business, and if you continue to do well, I'll continue to work with you. So I never understood that thought process with contractors. Like, where is the disconnect between, I guess, the business side of contracting and or basic customer service and doing a good job? I don't know why there's a disconnect with that. It's so frustrating because I guess we need them more than they need us.
Well, here's the thing. Like, for example, if I'm looking for contractors right here in Queens, I can find many, many contractors, and I can be very selective. But when you go out, like in a zip code, there is like 5 contractors they're serving, and you can't find anyone. You pretty much don't have much of a choice, and you just go with the one that's supposed to be the best. So if the choices is limited, then you don't have much leverage, and you need to find someone, because the property can't stay vacant, and then your money are invested, and you need to, like this guy that did a good job on the first property. He was close to 8 months in a property and he left it unfinished. So because he had my trust, he took advantage furniture, I mean, second property. And I mean, I learned a lesson not to ever let my guard down because I trusted him for the second property. You know, I was in vacation in my country and I was just sending him money. And then when I returned, the work wasn't done and he was creating more things. Oh, this needs to be done, this needs to be done. And it was a mess. And by the time I figured that out, you know, there was so much for me to lose and to reevaluate. So that's another lesson that you can't trust anyone just because they do, you know, they do a good job with you on one property. I mean, there's so many things when you're saying about contractors. Uh, you don't know what they're going through. They don't have, you know, the W-2 income. So whatever the money they need, they got to get it from you to pay someone else. So it's a very like kind of a shady type of business. And I know one guy was like, you know, he did some work for me in one property, and I said to him, "Look, like I'll pay you when the work is done." And he was like, "No, I'm not leaving. Like I'm going to be here until you pay me." I'm like really desperate. I said, "No, like," and we kind of got into a situation where like I felt like threatened, and I said, like, you know what, here's the money. So and so you gotta understand that also sometimes could be like, you know, not very pleasant to deal with because of their circumstances, whatever they're going through. And
Yeah, I wrote a blog about that on my website on richstatemind.com where I talked about strategies on working with contractors, and one of them that I learned was not to put more than 50% down when it comes to working with contractors. If you can, really 20% down, or break the job up into segments. So if it's going to be a 4-week job, you pay them by milestone. So one milestone is week 1, second milestone is week 2, because it keeps them incentivized, and then leave 60% of the work or 40% of the work at the end. Because what I've noticed is what I did was, my mistake, I left maybe like 10% of the work to be done at the end, and they just dip, and they're already on the next job, the next big fat job. And it's like pulling teeth to get them to come back to fix, putting shoe molding down, the small stuff, or some grout down. It's very frustrating. And that's why I don't like sometimes dealing with one-man show contractors. I like dealing with businesses sometimes. If I don't have the time to really micromanage that situation, then what I do is I can go, at least with a big business, there's multiple people I can call and say, hey, look, this is not done. Okay, we'll get the other guy to come down, or usually have some type of warranty. But that's so far in my experience. I myself do not have a go-to contractor yet as well. I just got, screwed over a couple of times this year. But when I go to the big business, I can usually get my job done the right way the first time. It's going to cost me probably $1,000 or $2,000 more, but at least I don't have to worry about it. But sometimes for something like painting, I don't want a big company. I just need one guy to do that. And sometimes I can't even get that one guy to do that right. So I got to go in there and do that myself.
Yeah, as you said, oftentimes at the end, those little details, it doesn't pay for them to finish. Like even if you don't give them the 10 or 20%, they're better off to start another job, because once they get the 80% payment, and trust me, like I study everything about how to manage contractors, and I know all the rules, and I pay them 30%, 30%, 30%. But it sometimes that's just not enough to be able to get the contractor to do a good job. Like, I mean, I study all the information and I know all the strategies to manage contractors. But again, it depends on your choice in terms of what are the options when it comes to contractors in a specific area that you work. If you're like in a big city, then you have no problem. And I actually prefer, if I'm in a big city, to deal with the property manager, somebody who's going to be managing the contractors, instead of me going and hiring a contractor, or get a contractor recommended from property manager. So that has been the best experience. Like in Toledo, Ohio, I had a contractor who was recommended by a property manager that I work with. This guy, they came in for a month and a half. They completely rehab a 2-family house for $16,000. I mean, that's amazing.
Yeah, that is amazing.
And there were no headaches, no problems. There were 2 things that they needed to complete. They returned, they fixed everything.
And so, with that being said, what would you say was your best deal / experience when doing this online, buying homes online and long distance?
My best experience was in Newton, New Jersey. I purchased a property which was already completed. The work was already completed. So although it was a bank-owned property, the work was completed. And all I had to do is I built it a deck and I changed the heating system, and that cost me like around $20,000. That was my best experience because I purchased that property for 60,000. I invested 20,000, and right now this property is worth like about close to 300,000.
Whoa.
It's a very competitive market for renters. And the very first week when I listed the property for $2,000 per month, I got close to 10 applicants. So I was very selective, and I selected the best tenants, and that family is like amazing. They're like my partner, so I don't even see them as tenants, and I get $1,000 every month.
Wow. Yeah, that is actually great equity. That's great equity.
It's like I didn't have to do any work. I didn't have to deal with contractors, so it was pretty much everything was done.
Wow.
That was.
It's almost like you got this down to a science.
Yeah, you have to. Otherwise, you get you get those lessons over and over again. And trust me, I've made mistakes multiple times, not just one time. And sometimes you ask yourself, like, what is wrong with me? Like, I already made that mistake 2 times. Like, I'm doing it again now, And it just you have to some things you have to learn more than once. It's, at the end of the day, you have to be very persistent. And I really like the name of your blog because it's all about the mindset. Like, I really believe that your mindset is the most important quality that you have is how you see and how the business in real estate comes into play. And like, what are you gonna do when the contractor does the work and then you have to do it over again? You're gonna give up, and you're gonna sit down in a corner and say, "Oh my God, like I screwed up," which I did. Trust me, like, and I have all these feelings, but at the end of the day, your mindset is going to allow you to continue and get stronger and get you got to be able to overcome challenges, because without challenges you can't grow, you can't get better. If you want to get better in something, you got to keep on making those mistakes. And making a mistake, to me, I see it as like, this is the process. You just have to be strong enough to sustain, go through the process.
I agree, and I think COVID has expedited some of the learning lessons. My business partner and I have was going to learn eventually. Every excuse in the book as why you can't pay rent, people that have to get evicted, coming up with payment plans and sticking to the lease. Definitely a lot of learning lessons on how to insulate our business as well to ensure, even if for vacancy, purposes and stuff like that. So I really am appreciative, and I think you hit it right on the head as far as mindset, because sometimes you get frustrated and you're like, man, did I get into the right thing? But if you do the right thing enough times, it'll work out. And I think I'm a strong believer you can turn an okay deal into a better deal down the road. And it kind of worked out for yours that's in upstate New York. It kind of, was giving you some challenges at first, but then it ended up working out. And but because you stay consistent.
Yeah, the time would you, like, for example, like you wait enough, you'll get an opportunity to either break, even like the second property in New Jersey that I had such a hard time. Like, I held the property for a year and a half with so many headaches, and especially at the end, I had the property under contract like for 4 months, and nothing was happening. And I had a problem with the title, and I had title insurance and all that. And a week before closing, I got close to $4,000 worth of violations because the property was vacant, the grass was overgrown. It was like always those things were like coming at me, and I just try to, maintain and keep my faith into that.
What's your end goal when it comes to real estate? What are you trying to do?
You see, here's the thing. Like, for me, like as I said at the beginning, like I'm 5 years away from retirement from my That's one thing. And what I'm trying to do is like I'm trying to build enough cash flow within the next year and a half, so I don't have to wait 5 years for retirement. And I'm not worrying about appreciation because I don't know how long I'm going to be in real estate in terms of maybe one day I'm going to decide I'm going to sell all my assets. So appreciation is not something that like, I have my primary residence, which is appreciated like well beyond my wildest expectations. So in terms of appreciation, primary residence in New York is like really, really the best investment. But what I want to do is I want to build enough cash flow to be able to have like a comfortable retirement, and I can just commit myself to syndications and passive real estate investment in after 5 years per se. So once, like I already know a lot of people who are actually doing, syndications with like multi family units. They have, I have a guy who owns 1,000 units. So what I want to do is eventually just invest my money passively and just collect interest in that eventually.
So yeah, can you explain a little bit about what a syndication is and then how you intend to get started in that?
Yeah, so for example, syndication is like a few partners, they're purchasing a multi-million-dollar deal. And what they're doing is they raise the capital from investors. And if you're an investor and let's say you invest 100,000 with a syndication, they usually buy 200-300 units complexes. And then you collect 10 on your investment, and the other benefits from being a syndicator. If they have cash flow appreciation, they do share with, you could be a limited partner or you could be a general partner in the syndication. It's pretty much a group of investors putting their money together to execute a bigger deal. For example, to make sense to have a syndication, you need at least like a $5 million deal because there's a lot of fees, involved, you have to hire an attorney and do the syndication and all that. So you really need like a big deal, 100, 200 units, a couple of partners. You probably usually need to raise 20 to 30% from the purchase price. So we're talking about at least a couple $1 million syndication money they need to raise. So if you have like 10 investors and everyone puts say 100,000, you have $1 million. So then with $1 million, you'll be able to purchase a $3 million property. So that's how it works.
And then the person that gets everybody together to invest, is it they get a bigger piece of the pie than the other passive investors?
So they do a little better, like in terms of they get like certain fees, like to find the property, to manage the property, to exit the property. They do, but usually the way the syndications are structured is the partners are protected in terms of collecting interest before the general partners. Like if you're the owner, if you're the guy who purchased the deal, usually I get paid before you get paid. That's the way the structure goes. So in other words, if the positive cash flow is enough just to pay me 8%, it's not enough to pay you 8%, I'm going to get the payment before you get the payment. But you do get like thousands of dollars of fee to find the property, to manage the property, to exit the property. So in that term, it's better to be the general partner, the one who is purchasing the deal.
Can you do that part-time, or that's a full-time real estate investor job?
If you're a limited partner, all you got to do is sign the check and collect your interest. That's not, you never need to know what's going on in the property if you don't want to.
And if you're the syndicator, then
you're the syndicator, you have to be looking for properties, you have to be looking for people to invest the money, you have to be looking for a property manager. That's a full-time job. You really need to be on top of your game
for that one. Wow.
Like one of my
that's a big.
I was really looking into getting a syndication myself, like at the beginning of this year. But like I realized how much work is involved in it, and it's way more work than just managing like a few single-family properties. What I'm doing right now, and most of them are really pretty much tenant self-managing. I'm not the guy who's managing properties. My tenants are managing themselves, and if I need to give them $100 discount from the rent, I'm happy to do that. So like I try to have very little involvement. Like I get a text or email once every few months at the most.
Wow.
Because like, like I have a full-time job.
Exactly.
And,
No, yeah. And, and and I totally agree with you because to automate and to make things as passive as possible is the goal. And I've always thought about syndicating, but I just always thought it was just kind of it was intimidating because it's such a seems like such a big project. And I felt like I needed to know a little bit more about real estate before I got into something like that and wasted everybody's money. Uh,
you probably want to be a limited partner to actually to see how the process goes before you become a general partner. Because to be a general partner, you have to be actually doing the deal yourself, which is like a lot of variables there. So I wouldn't just jump into being a general partner and raising money and then doing everything myself.
okay.
That's You need to have enough real estate experience in multifamily to do that, to be able to find a good deal. And there's so much education out there in terms of syndication. But yeah, eventually, if you want to stay in real estate, you might want to do, if you want to do bigger deals, you can't do them alone. Like at some point, I realized that I'm maxed out. Like I can't get any more deals because I have more properties. So because I was maxing out my own potential, I said like I got to be part of a team where we can raise more money, we can make more money. But I think I gotta wait for that a little bit more until I have more free time.
When you retire.
When I retire,
And so to sum it all up, uh, I wanted to ask you because you're doing a lot, and I can see you've set forth what your vision is, and you're putting action to it. And I think that's what sets a lot of people back, right? They have these dreams of what they want to do, but they never step in and do it. So, what is your rich state of mind? Why do you do what you do?
I mean, eventually there's certain things that I want to be part of. For example, um, there are certain foundations that I want to donate and I want to be part, and I want to actually donate not just money, just want to donate my time. Uh, so that's kind of an idea that I have for many, many years. And like I'm from like born and raised in Bulgaria, so there are children foundations in Bulgaria that actually really need money, and they really need someone who's been able to not just donate money but donate time. So I think that's going to be very fulfilling when I do have sufficient capital to invest like a few $1 million and build facilities and support a cause that is like bigger than me.
Hmm.
And if you don't have strong enough why, then this really gets kind of meaningless. I got all the toys at some point. With the best motorcycle, I got the best cars. I have a pretty nice house, but that doesn't get you going for long periods of time. So you need something that's really, really beyond what you can do in terms of just being uh, selfish and like going on vacation, and that just doesn't get. I mean, it's nice. Don't get me wrong.
Oh yeah.
uh, every summer I travel. I travel this for a month during the summer. But my idea is like, I have planned. Like, it's very important that you plan. Like, I have planned the next 40 years of my life if I live that long. So within the next 20 years, I want to be in a place where I can um, create this value for children, for orphans in Bulgaria, where I can be, making decisions how things are done and being the driving force around helping somebody who actually has no choice, like a little child that has no choice and no capacity to grow. And I think as a teacher myself, and I see students that I work with how vulnerable their lives and how much they need an adult and how much they need a teacher. So growing up is, very a place where you need to be supported. If you don't have that, it just really can make the difference in your life.
I appreciate that. I think after a while, like you said, you do kind of run out of the selfish reasons, and there's got to be something else. I call it kind of like the why that makes you cry, and that's what keeps me going, like on a day to day. Averaging 4, 5, 6 hours of sleep sometimes because sometimes you got to put in that extra time and that extra or that extra money, thought process in order to complete the vision. And so I love what you're doing. You definitely educated me on a different strategy that requires less hands-on, because I'm big on investing in something and then eventually I don't have to be in it all the time, because we're doing this to free ourselves up, not to create another job for ourselves. And so I like what you're doing. I think it's definitely a different strategy, and I think it gives some reassurance on both ends. That member puts in 20% down, right? So you get your 20%, and so now they bought in, and y'all are both have that loyalty to each other, and I like that. So I
Yeah,
really appreciate you taking the time.
it's just like I try to think of a way that I'm creating value to somebody else. Like, for example, if I'm helping somebody get the home of their dreams, just putting 20% down and not thinking about going to the bank. And yeah, they have to probably do some work in the property, and they don't mind doing it. Uh, and I know that they're going to do the work, right, because that's their property. So that makes me feel like I have accomplished something beyond my selfish, money or positive cash flow monthly. I mean, that's nice to have, but the energy is not there. The energy is right when somebody else on the receiving end, in this case the tenant, is also happy. They're very happy. Like, for example, I just had a tenant, like she was so grateful that I was able to provide that property right next to her house and the terms that she wanted, and she didn't have to go to the bank, and her credit wasn't perfect. So like that makes me go for it. It's not so much than like, oh, I got some positive cash flow. Yeah, that's very nice, but I want to have like this positive karma, this positive energy. Like, I believe in the law of attraction. So whatever you project, that's what you receive. So I always want just the other person I'm working with to be in a place where they're happy and they're satisfied, and so it works for them just as much as it works for me.
Yes, because I believe that this is a people's business, not just a numbers business, because you are affecting people's lives in many different ways. Back to that foundation uh, problem you had.